Across history, weapons did more than win wars. They reshaped power, society, and the world we inherited. Darkness. A faint metallic reflection appears. Weapon 1, the bronze sword, the first weapon to turn metal into authority. Around 2000 BCE, power began to change. Weapons were no longer found. They were made, crafted by specialists, controlled by early elites. From Mesopotamia to Mycenaean Greece, states began to rise. These blades were rare, expensive, symbols of rank. For ordinary people, power now stood above them. Early armies marching across open terrain. With the sword came organized conquest. The weapon became identity, leadership, legitimacy. Even in death, rulers claimed power through it. Today, these blades remain silent witnesses to the moment when power became metal. You're watching History Fact Story, stories of power and the past. Tell us, which ancient weapon still fascinates you most? Now, we continue. A new weapon will challenge the sword, not through status, but through order and unity. Weapon 2 is about to reshape the battlefield. We're elite. Weapon 3, the Scythian composite bow, a weapon that reshaped power across the Eurasian steppe. Here, mobility was survival. The composite bow was small, light, and deadly at range. Designed not for foot soldiers, but for riders in motion. War no longer depended on heavy armor. Power came from speed, distance, and precision. Armies on foot could not close the distance in time. Scythian riders controlled movement, trade, and territory. Even powerful empires feared their reach. They struck, withdrew, and struck again. War became fluid, unpredictable, without fixed lines. The battlefield expanded as far as a horse could ride. This weapon turned nomadic riders into regional powers. But beyond the steppe, another weapon was rising, a weapon of discipline, empire, and close-quarter control. Weapon 4 will redefine conquest. Weapon 4, the Roman gladius, a weapon that replaced tribal warfare. With disciplined conquest, Rome did not conquer through size, but through order. The gladius was small, controlled, built for precision. It was meant to strike from behind the shield. War became discipline, drill, repetition. No heroes, no chaos, only formation. Exhausted soldiers rotated out. Fresh ranks moved in. Power came from teamwork, not from single warriors. Battles fed expansion. Expansion built empire. The gladius was more than a weapon. It was a tool of administration and control. War-shaped law, roads, and governance. Conquest became systematic, calculated, enduring. This sword turned armies into institutions. But beyond empire, another weapon was rising. A single shot that could challenge armored power. Weapon 5 will change the balance of the battlefield. Weapon 5, the Viking axe, the Dane axe, a weapon of shock, speed, and decentralized raiding power. Across the North Atlantic world, power moved with the sea. Raiding was fast, flexible, and unpredictable. The axe was light, long, built for sudden force. It was not a tool of heavy armor. Its power came from momentum and reach. War shifted from armies to small mobile bands. Communities along rivers and coastlines became vulnerable. Wealth moved, not through empires, but through raids. Power decentralized, spread across ships and crews. Kings and rulers struggled to control the coastline. The axe became identity, culture, memory. Raiding was not only battle, it was a way of life. You're watching History Fact Story, serious stories of the past. If you're learning something new, subscribe to support the channel. And tell us which historical weapon interests you most. Because soon, a new weapon will challenge armored power. A single shot in the hands of ordinary soldiers. Weapon 6 will change the rules of the battlefield. Weapon 6, the crossbow, a weapon that gave common soldiers power over armored nobles. In a world of knights, power belonged to those in armor. The crossbow changed that balance. It required less training, but delivered lethal precision. Skill shifted from years of practice to a few moments of aim. Even heavy armor could no longer guarantee safety. The battlefield no longer favored the mounted elite. Cities could defend themselves with ordinary citizens. Some rulers called it dishonorable, even tried to forbid it, but its power spread because it was practical. Authority now had to answer, not only to nobles, but to defenders below. Technology had shifted power downward. War was no longer defined by status, but by range and force. But soon, a new weapon would challenge armor even further. A weapon of distance, discipline, and devastating volleys. Weapon 7 will reshape the meaning of the battlefield. Weapon 7, the English longbow, a weapon where mass infantry defeated medieval knight dominance. This was not a weapon of single combat. It demanded strength, discipline, and years of practice. Built from yew, tall, flexible, and powerful. Arrows left the bow at incredible speed. War moved upward, into the air. Heavy armor could not outrun distance. Power shifted from the mounted elite to disciplined archers. Victory came not from a single blow, but from volleys. War became coordination, patience, endurance. The age of the armored charge began to weaken. The longbow supported armies and strengthened royal power. A simple weapon with extraordinary consequence. But beyond the battlefield, another force was rising. A weapon that would bring walls and castles to an end. Weapon 8 will challenge the foundations of medieval power. Weapon 8, the Chinese fire lance, the first true gunpowder weapon, and the beginning of a new age. In medieval China, innovation reshaped the battlefield. Gunpowder, once used for rituals and medicine, found a new purpose. The fire lance combined flame, force, and shock, a blast of fire and fragments at close range. Fear became part of warfare itself. Noise, light, and heat changed how battles began. Designs evolved, stronger, more controlled, more powerful. Fragments soon gave way to solid projectiles. From this weapon, the firearm was born. Warfare moved from muscle and metal to chemistry and force. Power now came from ignition, not from strength alone. The first spark of a technological revolution. Soon, that spark would grow louder. A weapon capable of breaking walls and reshaping cities. Weapon 9 will challenge the foundations of power. Weapon 9, the Ottoman siege cannon, a weapon that ended the age of castles and medieval walls. Built in the 15th century, it was engineering on a new scale, cast in bronze, enormous and difficult to move. But when it arrived, its presence changed everything. For centuries, walls meant safety. Now, they became targets. Shock, weight, and repeated strikes broke defenses. In 1453, this weapon helped bring down a legendary city. The fall of Constantinople marked more than a victory. It signaled the end of medieval fortification. Cities now had to rethink architecture, defense, and space. Power shifted from height and stone to geometry and artillery. The age of the castle was over, But the story of firearms was only beginning. From massive artillery, power would soon move to the soldier's hands. Weapon 10 will change warfare at close range. Weapon 10, the arquebus, a gunpowder weapon that began to replace feudal warrior culture. For centuries, power belonged to armored elites. The arquebus changed who could fight and who could win. Training took time, but not a lifetime. Fire replaced skill as the source of power. A sudden flash, a sound that reshaped fear. Battles became timing, formation, and volley fire. Heavy armor began to lose its purpose. Power moved downward into organized infantry. War was no longer ruled by tradition. It was ruled by technology and industry. The world stood at the threshold of a new military age. You're watching History Fact Story, where history meets power. If you value thoughtful history, subscribe to support the channel, because soon this weapon will evolve. More reliable, faster, and far more decisive. The next step will change warfare even further. Weapon 11, the flintlock musket, a weapon that built national armies and state-controlled warfare. Gunpowder was no longer experimental. With flint and steel, ignition became reliable. One spark, one motion, one shot. War turned into synchronization and command. Battles depended on orders, not individual combat. Drill became discipline. Discipline became power. States could now project force over entire regions. War required supply, industry, administration. Societies began to organize around armies. Violence was no longer personal. It became institutional, structured, national. The musket transformed warfare into a system. But soon, technology would increase range and accuracy. A new design would change how soldiers fought and how armies advanced. Weapon 12, the ship of the line, a floating weapons system that built sea empires and global control. Here, power depended on wind, wood, and discipline. The broadside turned ships into mobile artillery platforms, dozens of cannons firing together as one weapon. Officers issue commands, flags and signals in the wind. Battle was no longer chaotic. It became geometry, distance, and overwhelming fire. Control of the sea meant control of trade. Empires expanded, not only on land, but across oceans. States invested in fleets, industry, and logistics. War became administration, navigation, record-keeping. Victory was measured in oceans secured. The broadside ship turned navies into instruments of empire. But soon, power at sea would change again. A new age of industry, engines, and transformation. Weapon 13, Napoleonic field artillery, a weapon where mobility and firepower began to shape modern battle. War no longer stood still. Cannons could now move with the army itself. Speed became part of strategy. Artillery turned into a system of drill and timing. One shot could break momentum. Commanders used mathematics, distance, and angles. Firepower prepared the attack and protected the retreat. Battle planning moved from instinct to calculation. War became industrial in rhythm, even before industry itself. Power now belonged to coordinated fire. The battlefield grew wider and more destructive. Field artillery reshaped how wars were fought and how victories were made. But soon, technology would change bullets themselves. Greater accuracy, longer range, and a new kind of battlefield. Weapon 14, the Minié rifle, a weapon that turned warfare industrial and mass mobilized. For centuries, muskets valued speed over accuracy. The minié ball changed that balance. Soft lead expanded into the rifling, increasing range. Shots traveled farther and struck with precision. But armies still marched in old formations. Traditional tactics met modern fire. War began to resemble production, repeated, relentless. Battles now depended on factories, rails, and supply lines. Mass armies meant mass consequences. War grew larger, deadlier, and harder to escape. Technology had outpaced strategy, and the age of industrial warfare had begun. Soon, firepower would no longer be single shot. A new weapon would multiply bullets and redefine fear on the battlefield. Weapon 15, the Gatling gun, a weapon of industrial firepower and asymmetrical colonial dominance. Before this, battles depended on the rhythm of single shots. The Gatling gun changed that rhythm forever. Multiple barrels, one continuous storm of bullets. Firepower became repetition, speed, and machinery. Few could advance against its line of fire. Its power was often used where resistance had fewer resources. Technology widened the gap between armies and the people they confronted. War grew dependent on supply, metal, and industry. Violence was no longer limited by the pace of the human hand. The battlefield became mechanical. This machine marked the transition from soldiers' fire to industrial firepower. You're watching History Fact Story, thoughtful stories of power and history. If you value work like this, subscribe to support the channel. Because soon, fire would no longer need a hand to turn it. A new weapon would fire on its own, without pause. Weapon 16, the Maxim machine gun, a weapon where defensive power overpowered offense. Before this, attack and movement shaped battle. The Maxim changed the direction of power. Automatic fire, sustained, relentless. The machine could outlast the soldier. Defense became stronger than the charge. Movement stalled. Battlefronts turned into static lines. Courage could not outrun velocity. War now depended on supply, metal, and endurance. Advancing meant risk. Waiting meant survival. Technology had tipped the balance toward the defender. The battlefield became static, mechanical, restrained by fire. War would never again move at the speed of the human body alone. Soon, power would shift to weapons even larger. Fire, distance, and destruction on an industrial scale. Weapons. Weapon 18, the U-boat submarine, a weapon of hidden naval power and economic warfare at sea. For centuries, war at sea was fought in open view. The submarine changed that world. Power moved into the unseen. War became patience, waiting, and precise decision. Targets were not only warships, but supply and commerce. Economies became battlefields. A single strike could silence an entire voyage. Nations answered with convoys, coordination, and escort fleets. Science entered warfare through sound and detection. The ocean became a layered battleground. Victory depended on silence, not speed. This weapon reshaped strategy without ever being fully seen. Power now existed below the surface, but soon, power would rise into the air. A new weapon would reshape distance, speed, and strategy. Weapon 20, the tank, the Mark I, a machine built to break trench warfare and redefine mobility. For years, the battlefield refused to move. The tank was designed to cross the impossible. Armor replaced vulnerability. Men moved where infantry alone could not. Inside, the battlefield became machinery. The trench was no longer a barrier. For the first time, attack regained momentum. Warfare shifted toward armor and mobility. The battlefield itself began to change shape. This machine was crude, limited, yet revolutionary. It marked the beginning of mechanized land warfare. You're watching History Fact Story, serious storytelling from the past. If you value this work, subscribe to support the channel, because soon, power would leave the ground entirely. A new weapon would carry war into the air. Weapon 21, the assault rifle, the AK-47, a weapon that shifted political power through guerrilla warfare. After industrial wars, conflict changed shape. The AK-47 was simple, durable, and easy to maintain. It worked almost anywhere. Power no longer belonged only to state armies. Light, automatic, effective at close range. Insurgencies gained reach and endurance, a weapon that could be supplied, copied, and shared. It became more than equipment. It became an icon of revolution and resistance. War moved between battlefields and everyday life. The line between soldier and fighter grew thin. This weapon reshaped conflict, from nations to movements. But soon, power would rise far above the ground. A new weapon would strike cities from the sky. Weapon 22, the strategic bomber, the B-29, a weapon that turned cities into targets of war strategy. For centuries, war was fought where soldiers stood. The B-29 carried war far above the battlefield. Range, altitude, endurance. War became calculation, mapping, and precision from the air. Decisions now reached entire regions, not single fronts. Urban centers became part of military planning. Industry, infrastructure, and morale became targets. Strategy expanded from battles to entire societies. War grew abstract, yet deeply human in consequence. Technology gave new power and new responsibility. Air power reshaped decision-making, politics, and ethics. The sky had become a battlefield. But soon, one weapon would change history forever. Power, on a scale the world had never seen. Weapon 24, the atomic bomb. Instant destructive deterrence that changed global geopolitics. Born from science, fear, and wartime urgency, this weapon combined knowledge, industry, and secrecy. Its power reached beyond the battlefield. A single moment changed millions of lives. War had crossed a moral and technological threshold. History gained new questions about power and responsibility. Nations began to fear conflict as much as they prepared for it. War shifted into deterrence and tension. Peace now depended on restraint. Power became global, constant, and precarious. Humanity lived in the shadow of possibility. The atomic age shaped diplomacy, fear, and restraint. War had reached a point where victory could mean ruin. But soon, power would move into orbit, a new age of global reach and constant vigilance. Weapon 25, the hydrogen bomb, a weapon of fear-based superpower balance, reshaping the world order. Built in competition, secrecy, and accelerating science, it multiplied destructive force far beyond the atomic age. Its power reached far beyond any battlefield. A distant light consumes the frame, cut away before effects. Nations realized war could end the world that fought it. Strategy became deterrence, tension, and constant readiness. Weapons existed, not to be used, but to prevent use. Power turned into balance, fear, and fragile stability. Humanity struggled between security and survival. Politics and science now carried global responsibility. Every decision reached every life. The weapon did not rewrite borders. It rewrote what power meant. You're watching History Fact Story, where we explore power and the past. Comment which weapon in this journey fascinated you most? From blades to machines to forces beyond imagination. History shows power changes technology, and technology changes us.